when it comes to you as a person, right, you know what you can do, like how you do it, like that's a technical skill, but the why is really critical. And the why, fundamentally, AJ, to your point, isn't just about this output. It's not just what do we deliver, but it's who are we becoming as a result of this.
You fall into a habit of managing children, as opposed to what your real calling is to bring the greatness out in them. It takes effort, it takes time, it takes real consideration to do.
So I think that's an important attribute of leadership, is not only to share how people should aspire to be, but also live it out yourself.
You develop virtue in action. You don't develop virtue just by thinking about it. So much of what happens is just measured by the tangible. It's not measured by, is this something great, the why.
I think with Zoom, it ends up being a focal point on productivity. Maybe you'll have like a banter for 2 or 5 minutes, and then like, let's get to work.
What did you guys think of the idea of friendship that he brought up?
I loved it.
I thought it was so radically different than anything I'd heard before that it was and very profound. I loved it as well.
Welcome to the Ordered Life podcast. Yeah,
that's good.
This is something I realized I need to start doing at the beginning of any of our recordings, is saying this is Laborum Exercens Part 3. Because the number of times we just start bantering and I'm like, I do not remember what this was.
For your own self.
Yeah, and then I have to go into like the middle of a and I typically have to listen to a podcast for like at least 2 minutes to be like, okay, this
is what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Just little behind the scenes things that I realize.
Yeah.
I can do that.
That's a good idea. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you want a refresher on the temperaments?
No, I'm good.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm just trying to. You're melancholic, right? Melancholic, sanguine,
Phlegmatic.
peacemaker.
Brilliant. All right, so to give the listeners some background, we had the massive privilege of being able to chat with Alex Havard over the weekend. Unbelievably good conversation, great interview. We will likely have released that before this episode. So maybe even before listening any further, please go back and listen to that, because Havard has said more than we can possibly say ourselves. We will say, if you're interested in what you hear, and if you're interested in what you heard, if you've already listened to that podcast, to please go and check out Alex Havard's resources, especially his online courses. We ourselves are likely planning on doing some in the new year, and a number of my friends I've reached out to as well, and we're trying to get something started there. So please, go and check that out. That's at alexhavard.com or at virtuousleadership.com as well. But where do you want to start with this conversation? What stood out to us?
Let's just go around. Yeah, what stood out to everyone?
Who goes first?
I'll start.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I thought the way...
Do you have this all written out?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Well, okay. I was inspired by Alex, who said, look, I recognize I'm a melancholic and I have to write things out so I can organize them in my head before I can speak about them. And I said, yeah, I do too. So I'm just going to do that. But that's not the highlight. The highlight, well, okay, there were so many, but just to pick one, the way he spoke about his mother as the best example of leadership, formulating the idea in this way, I was more able to see clearly what he meant about leadership when he put it that way, right? That leadership it's not a job, it's not a role, it's not a function, but it's this way of being, right? And in the context of his mother, it just made more concrete. She's not a CEO, she's not a manager, she's not this, she's just raising a family, these kids. But that the leader, in the context of a mother and child, to see and frame leadership in this way, that this is a person that can see the real value, like that diamond in the rough of this person, and in this case of a child, right? That despite, especially for a child, a raw, unpolished state, that they can see like this immense value, this character, this greatness that's in them, and that they can work to draw it out from them. Yeah, I just thought that was just such a beautiful way of framing the concept of leadership, and in my head, putting in that context really instilled this is just a way of being with people.
I think the role of mother and can be extended to parent in context of our children. We see them as they are in the context of who they ought to be. We see the goodness and the greatness that they can become. And the immense role that we have is where we're trying to help them recognize the beauty that they have within them, and to also recognize the maybe the natural obstacles they would have, which was alluded to in terms of the temperaments of what is easier for them to work towards these particular virtues versus these vices maybe that they may be more subject to. I think that's an important role of a parent.
Yeah, but the same concepts apply to every area of life, right? With your child, with your friends,
Right.
with your employees. That the leader in all aspects with people can see the character that they have within them, the value, the true value that they have within them, and can be someone that is a catalyst to bringing that out.
And then to help facilitate, let's call it this dialogue that would be an ongoing dialogue, the importance of friendship in that. Friendship within your children, friendship amongst those within your close social network, within work as well. I like that reference as well.
Yeah. No, I've loved what Havard has been able to speak about for years. Definitely one of the most impactful people in my life, like 100%. Parents, grandparents, friends, school, just the people who I've been able to be with. But I've never had a more impactful presentation be given than that presentation that turns out we were all present at the John Paul II Center in 2020, because Havard talked about temperaments being this intrinsic way that you want to act. And you can go back to our podcast with him to hear more about these. But in essence, you have people who love action, you have people who love people, you have people who love thinking, and you have people who just love peace. And these things are great strengths, but they also have their own characteristic weaknesses. And it's through the virtues that we need to be able to grow. So you shouldn't run from those things, right? You have to know thyself, as the old Greek axiom goes. But then you really need to embrace whatever that is and embrace the challenge that comes with it, because that's how you're being called to greatness. But I remember after my first summer of university, I was working construction landscaping, and I came to a definition of leadership, which I definitely think is very Havard-like, because Havard's definition of leadership is pursuing personal greatness by bringing out the greatness in others. And being able to work on these different construction sites with different foremen who are
Different personalities?
well, different personalities, but I'd say just more and less coordinated, right? You have one foreman who is super on top, like super high executive function, knows where materials have to come and what's going to happen 3 days from now. And you have other guys who are just hectic and whatever comes up, comes up. I recognize like the best foremen, which is to say like the best leaders, are the guys who knew how to put people in positions to be successful, which is again, to achieve personal greatness. Like you're being the best foreman you can be by what? Bringing out the greatness in your workers. And like what's the natural implication of that? It's that, well, these laborers aren't just being told do this, do that, do whatever. It's they're given agency. They're put in a position to be successful. They're put in a position to do something meaningful that has, there's a high yield on that task, as opposed to just giving them, oh yeah, do this, do that, point and go. Yeah, that style, you could tell the difference in morale on those different sites. And even like coworkers who, and I tried to do this myself as well, like who would try and help foremen kind of see things from like a different perspective, which isn't to say like the foreman were wrong, but just in terms of like the foreman can't do everything. Like he is managing a massive site. And so for people who are under him in a hierarchical stance to be able to say, hey, have you considered this? And the foreman who are able to listen to that, like, yeah, you're making very good margins on some of those sites, which is great to hear about. But it really takes this idea and view of the person that, yeah, you're created for greatness, and that virtues are the way of enabling and actualizing that greatness.
I think Havard did a good job distinguishing leadership versus management.
Yeah, that's a huge point that he brings up.
And essentially with management, he had alluded to that these particular managers are in place to basically extract as much human resource from these people that are on the team.
Yeah.
As opposed to a virtuous leader would be one in which recognizing the uniqueness of each individual contributor, finding in a way in terms of an element of engagement, but also demonstrates an element of humility to recognize it can't only be my way, because this work isn't for myself, how perhaps this one leader can get all the accolade, but how everyone together collaboratively can uniquely contribute towards a greater whole, and then also allow each one of them to demonstrate good virtue within their natural aptitudes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing about that is like good virtue is leadership. And that good leadership naturally comes out as kind of just best business practice. And that was a really interesting part of the conversation that we had with Alex as well. It was like businesses need to be mission driven. And yeah, you guys weren't here for the session that he gave to the university guys and young professionals, but he was talking almost entirely about mission at that point, and really, really, really big on this idea. And this is part of the reason why I really want to take one of his courses come the new year, because he talks about mission, and I want to learn a lot more about that mission. But in the business sense, like so many people know what a company does, and this is also getting very Simon Sinek-y, but some people know what the company does, less know how, but very few know why.
Right.
And so when it comes to you as a person, right, you know what you can do, like how you do it, like that's a technical skill, but the why is really critical. And the why, fundamentally, AJ, to your point, isn't just about this output. It's not just what do we deliver, but it's who are we becoming as a result of this. And I think that call out to really, really question, who are you becoming? What virtues are you developing? And we'll get into this, I think, in our next podcast that we'll be recording today, which will release at some point. I have no idea what the release schedule of these are going to be. But in Laborem Exercens, when John Paul II is talking about the objective and subjective value of work, the objective can in many ways be what is the output, but the subjective is how is this person developing as an individual, not
Who's it
just
for? What's
yes,
it for?
yeah, exactly. Who and what is it for, and how is this person contributing to the betterment of society, not just their tangible output, not just reducing them to labor, but seeing them as a person with dignity and value. Like, is this work furthering the development and fostering the development of the whole human person?
I can't help but bring all these things back to the family life and parenting.
Yeah.
Both of those ideas. So the difference between managing and being a leader. And I was reflecting on exactly that in the concept of my own fatherhood with all these little kids I have at home, because I could definitely see in myself and how it can happen to others, how you fall into a habit of managing children, right? I got to cook so you can eat. I got to clean your clothes so you can get you dressed. I got to get you out the door in time for this activity, that activity, and you could just fall into that trap of I'm just managing you, as opposed to what your real calling is to bring the greatness out in them. And exactly to your point, Anthony, it's the why, right? You can easily fall into the trap of what are we doing, and lose sight of the more profound question of the why. And for us in our family, it's we're raising saints, right? That's what we're trying to do. And if you keep that in the forethought of your mind, it's more obvious and more pertinent how you can, the things that you should do to be bringing that greatness out in them, as opposed to just cleaning up after them and those things. But it's definitely such a more profound calling, right? And it's just gives so much more weight and concreteness to all of these, and importance to everything, which is really there, right? And it's easy to lose sight of that when you get trapped into the daily grind of things.
I think that's true, is that because family life can be very busy, you're just left from task to task and just get through the day and then just get to the day's rest and then just leave it at that. You just focus on whatever needs to be done, as opposed to the calling of parents and the immense responsibility we have is to try to bring greatness from our kids.
Yeah, which is the vocation of marriage.
Yes.
Right? When you look at, well, what is the vocation of marriage? It is the good of the spouses, right? Which is to love your spouse and to get them to heaven. But then it's also for what? Procreation, so fruitfulness of that love, and education. And Havard says so many times, and I've heard it back in 2020, and I heard it again in this more recent context. And one thing that I kind of wrote down in terms of things that stand out as a bit of a tangent is that he always has these same core ideas. But I think what he's able to do so well is he's able to loop different aspects of your life into those core ideas. And so it's like a good composer who has this same or a similar motif in different parts of his songs, but he's able to take you from one part of the song into this motif, and you see how that shapes up. Similarly, Havard's able to do that with his philosophy and his messaging of virtuous leadership. Where this all comes back to is like this idea of education, like to bring out, right? So in the first context that I heard it, it was in the context of educators, right? Which was, well, you as educators, which many people at that conference were, need to be thinking, how do I bring out the greatness of these students? How do I recognize and help these students recognize that they are created for greatness? That the purpose of this education, of this school, is not just for you to get a piece of paper and walk across the stage and hopefully go to university, but
not just a checkmark activity.
exactly. But it is, are you becoming a better person, right? Who is our model for a better person? And then going back to this, having learned more about marriage with the vocation to marriage, is being in a state where I'm like discerning that myself and understanding, good as spouses, procreation and education, really recognizing that fundamental call to live the vocation of marriage, or to educate children, which is what it's to bring the greatness out of them, to recognize that they are called to greatness and to foster that.
I also really appreciated the call out to workaholism. And it comes back to what you're saying about just a box ticking exercise with school or whatever. That's the easy path to take.
Yeah.
Right. That's.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, and this one's pending.
No. I want to get that reaction.
Well, So this,
please.
Yeah. So I think one of the most profound moments, and it wasn't even from our interview, it was from Andrew Bello and Alexander Havard's conversation. I hope that we will be able to release that on our podcast. So yes, so the audience can know what we're talking about. But then also, just because I loved being able to sit on that conversation, I didn't contribute anything to it, but being able to hear it. And at one point in the conversation, Havard talked about how people will fall into this habit of just working and doing and like not examining themselves. And he's like, and they don't realize that there's this spiritual void inside of them. And when he said that, like it hit me like a truck, because I'm like, shoot, like I'm a cleric. Like I have this tendency to just do and I'm sanguine. So I love to just be in the moment and whatever feels good in the moment, I love to embrace. But when he said that, I'm like, like I know that I've been neglecting these little things along the way. But this is his way of speaking and saying that. And whenever I listen to it too, like I hear it and I'm like, like I need to stay on top of this. But sorry, back to you, Sean.
Yeah, well, like to reflect, to think about your own failings, to think about things that are not going well, like that's difficult. It's difficult to face those problems, but of course it's the only way to get through them and to solve them is to dwell on them. And the workaholism is a distraction.
Yeah.
The like living in the moment, it's a distraction, and it's easier than the mental stress that comes from handling these harder questions or thinking about these other areas in your life that can come from reflection. And also the temptation to see work, whatever it is, as just this ticking of the box exercise. Right? It's easier to just go through things and tick the box instead of figuring out, like, why am I doing this? Does this have real value? How can I improve this? How can I make it more meaningful to people? How can I bring the greatness out in my employees? Like those are harder questions. It takes effort. It takes time. It takes real consideration to do. And the cop-out is to just, I'm just going to tick the box. I'm not going to think about my own life. I'm just going to distract myself with work. That's the temptation and the vice to fall into.
I think also with certain professions, you could be more subject to workaholism. Please, workaholism.
I think you lost a vowel in there.
Yeah. But like say
magnetism.
Workaholism. There you go.
Like
there's certain professions where you can succumb to just being bombarded by work and justify that time. I think of friends who are lawyers, where the common practice you go to school, you do well in your undergrad, you go to law school, you pass your bar, presuming that's the sequencing if I recall correctly, and then you are in the beginning of your career where like 80 hours a week are just dedicated to that work, and you try to focus on that to build a good career and then get married after the fact, have kids, but then the challenge of managing or working through of your vocation to being a father and husband and to your professional work, and where it could just be, you could succumb to just focus on your professional work to the detriment of the family, where now your kids are now young adults and you didn't have that time. So an importance to recognizing, hey, this could be a pitfall. I need to have both and.
Yeah, and I like the shout out that Havard had to this idea that you have to overcome your weaknesses. You have to be aware of your temperament to understand where you're naturally going to have these defects.
Yes.
For cholerics, it's to use people. For sanguines, it's to, just stay in the moment. For melancholics, it's just to stay in their minds. And for peacemakers, it's to not want to bother anybody. And with each of those temperaments comes this specific challenge. For clerics, humility. Sanguines, it is perseverance. For melancholics, magnanimity, right?
Audacity.
And then for
phlegmatics is magnanimity.
So to really kind of see, and to his point, like that is the virtue that is knocking at the door. The other...
No, that is the door.
So that is the door.
Yeah.
Right? All the other virtues are right behind that. And I was thinking about this last night as well, because I was just wasting time. I just had a very unproductive evening. So there's like different things that I wanted to do, but I'm like, like I've had a good day. Like I can rest like a little bit, but then that rest kind of just turned into like 2 hours of rest. And I realized like, I was like why, what virtue am I struggling with here? Like, why am I watching reels for an hour and a half? Like what, how did this just happen? Like I know there's like 3 or 4 things that like are so life-giving that I want to do. And I was just getting upset with myself. And then I realized I'm like, that's perseverance, right? I mean, it's not discipline, because I thought it was like an issue with discipline. It's not an issue with discipline. It's an issue with perseverance, right? With fortitude to stay on that course of, hey, I want to do something good here, right? Or I want to rest, and now that time of rest is over. So it's a continuation of an activity that I've been trying to do throughout the day, as opposed to a starting of something new. Because I don't think I'm great at starting something new. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think the element, like, say, for example, succumbing to 2 hours of just watching reels.
Yeah.
I think it's important that you came to a recognition at some point during that time, like, hey, this needs to stop.
Well, see, that's the issue, is that usually I come to that recognition like 3 minutes in.
Yeah.
And it's just...
And you wrestle with it for another 90 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
No, just one more. Just one more. Yeah,
exactly. That's my issue. And I realized, like maybe it's that virtue of persistence to just stop. Right? It's not some other virtue that I haven't worked on. Like, it's that virtue of persistence to just say, okay, that's it. Right? To push through that moment instead of trying to create a different moment. I don't know, Sean, you have thoughts on what it's like.
Well, this key virtue idea is so, I don't know, what's the word? I just love the idea. It's freeing is what it is.
Yeah, it's liberating.
It's absolutely liberating. It's like, the analogy in my head is, it's the difference between going into a library and it's stuffed with books and saying, yeah, you've got to read all these books and there's a test and that's the only way to get to virtue, as opposed to saying, here's one book. Read this one book and then that will be your path to virtue. Like, the burden is so much less, and the focus really is part of the freeing, liberating aspect. Knowing that if I can just open this door, that's what's holding me back from all these other virtues. It doesn't take away the work or the necessity of putting in the time and the crucible that it takes to grow in all those virtues, but this one key virtue is holding me back. I can focus my time and attention there. And once I've accomplished this or nailed this, or, just put more of my effort into this one area, everything will get better.
Agreed. The first thing that I actually wrote out when it came to reflection of the conversation was just how he lives virtuous leadership. I was very happy to be able to chat with him a couple days before our interview. And he just meets you where you're at. It's not like he just talks about these things. Like, he is really trying to live them. And I went away from that conversation being like, wow, he took time to ask me questions about what I liked about his work, but then also met me really where I was at when I asked him questions about his work. And then he asked about my family and family history, that sort of thing. And then he remembered my name the next time I saw him. Like those little things, they really add up. And I just found it very nice and reassuring, which is much more like subjective, but yeah, I found that very, very encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just speaks to the order he has in his own life, to have
the unity of life.
The unity of life, that you can communicate the message and live the message, and that just gives so much more weight to the message itself. Yeah,
it's not like those philosophers who say one thing and then do something totally different. I'm thinking of the stereotypical philosophy teacher who's just like, nothing in this world actually exists, all simulation, and then goes home to his wife and children. It's like, all right, there's a bit of a disconnect.
Yeah, or the doctor who's very sick right, can't take care of himself, and you think like probably not going to lend as much weight to your medical advice as if you were a
Or the
healthy
dentist
doctor.
with bad teeth.
Yeah.
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 Or the fat man giving advice on how to get to work out. But I think what you're calling out is that Havard not only speaks well of how to lead an ordered life, but also demonstrate that by his example as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important attribute of leadership, is not only to share how people should aspire to be, but also live it out yourself.
Yeah.
The-
And I like
the
that
both
he
and.
uses himself as a bit of an example in those contexts. Like he doesn't talk about these concepts as something abstract and past him. He talks about it sometimes in the first person, which enables any of his audience to get to know him and understand where he's coming from in a much better way. And I think there's a temptation, especially when it comes to writing, at least for myself when I was learning English all throughout high school, to not speak about personal experience because it can degrade things unless it's just an opinion-based article. But I think there's something very powerful when you talk about these high ideals and then are able to articulate those high ideals and these big life ideas in the context of your own life and how you struggled with these things or how you overcome certain things. I think it adds weight to their truth and the challenge that is virtuous leadership.
Especially when the struggles attribute, it
Yeah.
just, hey, you're human too.
Yeah, it
Hey,
makes you
you
more
struggle too. I'm not alone. It's just not like your life is a complete ideal.
Yeah.
But there is an approachability to that leadership. Is, hey, you're aspiring for things too, and it's hard for them too.
Yeah, and it makes it very practical and tangible. And from the earlier conversation that I was able to have with him, I asked him how much of your work is thinking about these things and how much of it is just doing and sharing and having conversation. And he says a lot of it is the doing and sharing. He says like he'll read a couple books throughout the year, but like in a very serious way, like study them, not just glance through them. But he says you have to have contemplation and action, and you have to hold those two things in balance. And the more you act, the more you kind of have to contemplate on, and contemplation is incomplete without that action part. So I think that was a very good call out to, be audacious, to be humble, to persevere. Like you develop virtue in action. You don't develop virtue just by thinking about it. Yeah, that was a very good, impactful point as well.
How do you each of you guys think you are doing in terms of your own key virtues?
Better than last week after having chatted with him. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I'd say so. The reminder.
The reminder definitely helps.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
total reminder. Like where allows you to reflect of where you are at present, just as you pose this question, and like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I need to work on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as a phlegmatic, peace-loving phlegmatic, and being called a magnanimity, I just like shake my head. Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. I recognize I have to do this, but it just is like there's this, internal, like a ship at sea, right? And I just want calm waters. And it's like call to magnanimity. It's like there's a storm raging over there. I could see it in the distance, and I know I have to sail into it, but I do not want to.
What I come to recognize from the conversation is that we all have unique temperaments,
Oh, 100%.
but then we could feed off of each other in recognition of where our obstacles may be, that we can help pick each other up, because it's a unique working together. We naturally live out these virtues a little bit more so than other members. But say, for example, in terms of wanting calm waters, is that perhaps me and Anthony be like, hey, Sean, we should work on this. And then we
like
disrupt things.
I just want routine.
Well-
and I want order, and you guys want to come in and flip the table.
Yeah.
but then it's driven by like, we can do great things, Sean.
Well, but I think then like my issue as like a sanguine is like, I just love to have all these different things going at once.
Just love to keep flipping other tables.
Exactly. Right now, I just want to like go and go and go and go. And then obviously as a choleric, like I want action, I want action, I want action. I think part of the challenge within that is then I want to make my life busy, and I don't want to think, okay, what are the things that I'm being called to focus on right now that justly I should be putting as a first priority, building my schedule around. And I think that was a good reminder. And I think it was good that we had our business development session for the year end to plan for the next 1, 3, and 5 years on the Friday before, to really be able to flesh out kind of where a lot of our heads are at. And that gave me a decent bit of clarity on how you guys see me being able to support you.
One difference between hearing Alex talk over the weekend and when we heard him speak in 2020 is that in the first time, I thought I was more sanguine because I have a love of adventure, which is a more sanguine thing, and it's not natural to my own temperaments, but I think that's a learned thing over time. So this time I was able to hear him speak knowing I was skewed more melancholic than I realized before that. And so the call to audacity was one that I forgot even was a key virtue that I had to work on. And yeah, I like putting the kids down to bed or in like quiet times. I in the moment where he said that, I realized, oh yeah, I do have all these ideas that bubble up. And when it comes time to do them, I'm just like frozen. Like I can't think of them or whatever it is in a different context. I will just tend towards the whatever, like the normal regular things to do. And those ideas kind of go by the wayside, right? And whereas the key to getting them out is that audacity.
Yeah. AJ, anything else?
Refresh my memory on your temperament. Again,
Choleric sanguine.
Choleric sanguine. Okay. Very action oriented.
Yeah. But it's interesting because one of the first virtues that I loved hearing about was magnanimity, right? The calling of the soul to great things, the ability for the soul to the consider. What was it? The one considers himself worthy of great things. That's to be magnanimous. And Aristotle actually said it was like the highest virtue that a person could possibly have. That once a person has all of the other virtues, then they have a great soul. Whereas Thomas Aquinas put that virtue at the beginning, right next to humility. Like humility and magnanimity are foundational.
Right.
For
those are essentially the first two. Those are the first two chapters of his virtuous leadership book.
Yeah. To say like the truth is that you are created for greatness, and magnanimity is you have to desire greatness, and then all the other virtues like prudence, justice, temperance, self-mastery, fortitude. There we go. Are just tools to achieve greatness. I think it's easy when you get lost in the day to day to not think about the greatness that can come about things, or even to think it's silly to a degree, because you don't see that very often. So much of what happens is just measured by the tangible. It's not measured by, is this something great? The why. Even having a conversation with my friend this morning, he was mentioning that he works remote, and it's been challenging because you have your output, but you don't have that much connection. And I think another big takeaway just from hearing Havard speak over the weekend was that importance of being able to meet with the people who you're working on in a business context. Because if all you see work as is a means of output, right? All work is well, what have you produced? Have you met these tangible goals? As opposed to this is meant for the betterment of the person, right? The end goal is that we create something great. The byproduct of that will be some sort of monetary gain because
objectives versus the mission attribute.
Yeah, it should be. And same thing when it comes to our work, right? The idea of our model portfolio is to do what? Greatness with the client's money, to be able to put these things to good use, to put capital to good use, and we see returns as a byproduct of that. I think it creates a very strong case for much more in-person dialogue with coworkers and in the workplace, because then you're able to meet people where they're at and not just see them as a means of production, which Havard I think was also very big on when we got into the business development side of things, and how leaders can integrate this into their work day to day, is to recognize these people are not just employees, they are people, right? And as people, they are created for greatness. And so that should be the primary aim of the work that you are doing. And then the output will come as a result of that. And I love that he called people who view output and profit as small-minded people. That vice of pusillanimity, which is to have a small soul. I love
that word.
Idea.
You love that word too, right?
It's so it's so true, right? Like so many people are
pusillanimity, right?
Pusillanimity.
Pusillanimity. Now I'm fumbling over my words.
Pusillanimity.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to attempt that again.
Yeah, but even that he'd call out certain business leaders for that, like you're small-minded. I even remember, I think it might have been some talk that I heard him speak about, and I could be getting this totally wrong, so who knows? But there was some leader in a country that was known for his harshness. And I guess Havard was doing this presentation to the leaders of this country, and this person asked a question, and Havard said, "You have a small soul." And this person was just taken back because he had never been told that. And it turns out like that year was just transformational for this leader. He ended up passing away from a heart attack about a year after, but people told Havard, like, hey, there was a huge impact, like a profound impact that you had on this person, because he realized that he was living with a small soul. He had a small mind about the things that he could do, and that conversation really helped him recognize that he was created for greatness, that he could be created for more, and that the way he was living was a very small-minded way of living. I love Havard's way of calling a spade with that. He doesn't pull his punches, but it's all wrapped in this: you're created for greatness, don't be small.
Mm-hmm. This is a tangent. We don't have to dwell on it at all. The difference between getting together in person versus Zoom, I don't really understand the difference, but I can feel tangibly that there is a difference.
Yeah.
And it's kind of in my head like the difference between a wood-burning fire and a gas fire. Like they're both fire, but one's a fire without a soul. Right, without the crackle of the wood and the smell and the aroma, and it dances around and it changes and evolves, and one's just like lacking all those things. Or the difference between a acoustic drum set and an electric drum set.
Yeah.
There's this like tangible difference where you're like, yeah, they're making the same sound, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my tangent. Maybe it's because you transform a three-dimensional person into like a flat object.
Yeah.
I don't know why there's a difference, but there is a difference.
Well, I'll be honest. When you said three-dimensional person to a flat object, the first thing that I thought about was actually like the faculties of the person. Yeah, but you do, right? Like not only physically, but you also do that, I think, philosophically, depending on what your view of this online workplace relationship is do you take away that fact that they have a soul, right? Or are they just a body capable of output? Do you turn them from a multi-dimensional person to just a means of output?
Yeah, well, think about it. Like when you get together with someone, you shake their hand, they occupy your space, whereas someone on Zoom, you just like click leave meeting and it's over.
Yeah.
Right? These are like small little nuanced things, but they all add up to be like a big difference.
I think with Zoom, it ends up being a focal point on productivity. Maybe
Yeah.
you'll have like just a banter or just get to know, reacquaint one another to what's new to their circumstance, like for like 2 or 5 minutes, and then like let's get to work. It's very productive.
You're not-
Utilitarian.
You're not
Yes.
stuck with them in the same space,
Right.
which I think can be really fruitful for a conversation.
Which I think brings about the uniqueness of this individual, unique person. Even just going to their home or going to a coffee shop, and we kind of spoke of this with one of our good friends, is that there's an element of a uniqueness of a story that they get to share with you. Like going to a new coffee shop that we don't normally go to and meet with a client. They get to share with us something that's unique to their experience that is not something that we commonly incur. So there's a new story that's uncovered of the individual's person's life, their character, who they are, where they're at in life.
Yeah.
Okay, the last thing in our conversation with Alex Havard. What did you guys think of the idea of friendship that he brought up?
I loved it.
I thought it was so radically different than anything I'd heard before that it was and very profound. I loved it as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, because I haven't edited that episode yet, but I think that's one of the sections that I'm most looking forward to going back and dwelling on.
Mm-hmm.
I love the friendship attribute of our work.
Yeah.
Because, you can talk about a financial plan, you could talk about the objectives relative to like returns that are necessary, but who are you as a unique individual, father, husband, wife, a mother, and the unique story attributed to that, because that gives meaning as to why we're trying to focus on these different monetary, financial type goals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that like particular understanding of that this other person knows that they bring something to your life, and without that something they bring, like you would be devastated without it. Right? That view of friendship, and to communicate that, and again, I will bring it back to my children, that you can be both parent and friend to your child. And that, there's this kind of shallow view of friendship where it's sort of like buddy, high fives, we share a laugh. But it's very shallow, right? And that there's this truer, more deeper, and more profound understanding of friendship that like you contribute to my life in such a deep way that without you, I would be broken. Like I would have such a substantial loss, and that I let you know that. And you understand that I have this like need for you in my life. I think
a need and appreciation of one another.
Yeah.
In that relationship.
Yeah. Which is definitely very countercultural as we've become more individualized.
Or utilitarian relationships.
Yeah, like everything.
I can
is
get
just
this from you, you
yeah,
can get this from me,
yeah.
and then like let's leave it at that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like I know I do legitimately need you. I need your advice. Right? It's like a friend in need is a friend indeed. Like somebody,
Where's that from? Winnie the Pooh? Or?
I have no idea.
But yes, I appreciate the sentiment.
The profundity of that.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
I realized that in university when I hadn't chatted with a friend in a while. And I mean, because guys are different than girls. But yeah, one of my friends just reached out and he's like, dude, I need this advice. And I'm like, I really feel like your friend right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you haven't reached out in a while. I haven't reached out to you in a while just because we've been busy. Like I know we'll see each other once school ends for this semester. But that, hey, dude, like this is on my mind. Like, what do you think? What should I do? Like that was man, I have a responsibility, right? I have skin in the game in this conversation. It's not just, hey, we get together for a beer and we both enjoy a beer, so we're not drinking alone. There's something a little more there.
Yeah. Yeah. The importance of your presence, what you contribute to that person's life. Oh, I had another thought. So I shared with Daniela what Alex had said about friendship. And she was saying that she had just read that the French equivalent of saying, I miss you, or I can't remember, like some way of saying goodbye is not I miss you, but you will be missing from me. Which I thought encapsulates this idea of friendship. Like, yeah.
I think that's a good segue to close out.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's not what segue means.
Oh, sorry. Well, to come to a close of our conversation.
Nice. Thank you for listening. I'm Anthony.
I'm Sean.
I'm AJ.
Have a good day.
This podcast has been prepared by Sean Gregory, who is a portfolio manager, AJ Sanson, and Anthony De Lazari, who are associate investment advisors for IA Private Wealth Inc. Opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the portfolio manager and investment advisors only, and do not necessarily reflect those of IA Private Wealth Inc. IA Private Wealth Inc. is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization. IA Private Wealth is a trademark and business name under which IA Private Wealth Inc. operates.